certain mistakes in areas. So we'll just have to wait and see. All right, and it looks like we are underway. So as I said, we're starting off here in the prologue. Not too much to see. All we have available right now is the jump button, which will give these runners a little bit of added speed. So just get them through this area. So you'll see on Scrublord's side, he's rapidly jumping over this bridge to try and just gain a tiny bit of speed. As I said, nobody's really going to be taken off here in the prologue. There's not too much other than jumping. There's not really any fine movement you can do to speed this along. But moving into City, this is where we definitely should start seeing some awesome strats come into play. So definitely keep your eye on the left there at Scrublord as he starts off on the City. Appreciate the file name, Scrublord. So already you can definitely start seeing Scrublord is definitely going for a lot of hypers, a lot of wall bounces, really gaining speed here in City. Crono having a little trouble here with this wall bounce, but he got through it just fine. So going through the City here, you know, trying to speed up your motion. Now that we have available us to dash, we can definitely start using some of the more technical movement of the game. So you're noticing a lot of very long dashes by these runners. They're utilizing a piece of movement tech known as the hyper dash, which is just a mechanic where if you're holding down and right or left and you perform a dash, you get a large burst of speed, way bigger than a normal dash or a dash jump would give you. And another piece of movement they're utilizing is the wall bounce, as Crono just did a second ago, which is if you dash along a wall and then jump immediately after, you get a nice burst of speed into the air, just adding a nice bit of verticality to things. Scrublord moving on here to Chapter 2. He had a wonderful Chapter 1. It was absolutely beautiful. And now we're going to be seeing the dream blocks come into play here in a second. So the dream blocks are these giant square space looking things that whenever Madeline dashes into them, you're going to be getting, it's going to carry that momentum until the end of the dream block. So other things you could do with the dream blocks is on the way out of them, you can jump to get a little extra speed and height. You can also do the hyper dashes that I spoke of, which I'm sure we'll be seeing Scrublord doing a lot of. Crono finishing up City also with a wonderful time. Moving on, and we will see how he starts tackling his Chapter 2. Scrublord here on the left. Ooh, taking an unfortunate death there. This room definitely, now that we have introduced Battle in here, who will chase you, she will be about 3 seconds behind the players as they do their movements. Making a small mistake can definitely start adding up very quickly if you cannot recover immediately, as Battle will be right on your tail. So Scrublord having a little bit of difficulty in that previous room, but he made it through and moving on with his Chapter 2. Keeping an eye on Crono here to the right, he has now gained access to the dream blocks, so he can now move a lot faster throughout this chapter. So as you watch on the left, Scrublord is now leaving Chapter 2, and the exit area of Chapter 2 is mainly just a lot of managing your dashes and your hyper dashes perfectly so that you are not hitting any of these walls, not getting stuck on anything or hitting those springs, just trying to carry your momentum as much as you can through this section. It's beautifully done by Scrublord. Watching Crono here on the right, finishing up his Chapter 2, a couple more rooms. from what I can see, handling it very well. Very few deaths. Gonna take it a little safe there in the room with the battle lens, which is always a good call. That area can be very scary if you try and rush it. Scrublord here on the left, beginning Chapter 3. Now, Chapter 3, we're going to be introducing, you're noticing these little red and black creatures flying around are the dust bunnies, which will kill you upon contact. There will also be the dust just gathering, as you can see on the top and bottoms, will also kill you upon impact. And there will also be, later within the chapter, these tentacles coming out of platforms, which will become dust. Once you have touched the platform and you let off the platform, it will become dust. You cannot touch that platform twice, as you can see there on Scrublord's screen on the left. So another area where just making mistakes can definitely mess you up if you aren't ready for it. Crono here on the right, finishing up Chapter 2, seeing how he handles his hyper dashes and whatnot, just trying to keep his momentum moving as much as he can. And actually, with a 5:31 on Crono's side, finishing up Chapter 2, that puts him about 40 seconds ahead of his PB. So definitely keep watching Crono's side as he keeps moving, because he's definitely doing really well for the beginning of the run. So Scrublord has now started the huge mess section of Chapter 3, where you have to seek out these 3 buttons to clean up the area around Oshiro. So, you know, each one is kind of routed in the speed run just so that whenever you leave a button, you're as close to Oshiro as you can. Scrublord's now performing a trick known as the spike jump there. Had to go for its second try, but that's no big deal. Or basically, you're jumping off of the corner of the wall where the spikes are, because if you are facing the same direction as spikes, their hit colliders will not kill you. So the Scrublord just flying around. This huge mess section can definitely be tricky because there's a lot of obstacles in your way that you have to kind of work your dashes around. Crono here on the right, having a beautiful room right there. That room can be very difficult to navigate through. He's going to be entering his huge mess section of Chapter 3 very shortly. One more button for Scrublord here on the right. He's making wonderful pace so far. As you can see, with the cycles of some of these dust bunnies, these rooms can be very tricky. And those cycles are different whether you have died in that room or not. So if you die and respawn, the cycle can be completely different. So Chapter 3 definitely requires runners to not only know the main strategy to get through a room, but also maybe have a backup or two in case they take an unfortunate death. Scrublord, now that he's done with this huge mess section, will be moving towards Oshiro to finish up his Chapter 3. Ooh, missing a button there. Not too big of a deal. He recovered it very well. That can be very scary with that section with all the dust around you. Keep an eye out here on Crono's side as he begins his huge mess section, kind of navigating through this mess, so to say. Doing it very well, though, not getting stuck on too much. Scrublord on the left just finished up a very tricky room where you have to gather that key, requiring you to do a bunch of hypers in a row, which can be very tricky, especially for newer runners. But for someone of Scrublord's caliber, made it look like nothing. So Scrublord's moving on to the quote-unquote boss of Chapter 3, which is Oshiro. So the main thing you'll notice about Oshiro is that he has this lightning bolt that goes across the screen. That shows where he will dash across the screen to try and attack Madeline. If he hits you, you will die and have to restart the room. For most of these rooms, though, these runners are going to be going through them so quickly that Oshiro will not even have a time to dash through it. Some of these rooms can be very tricky, though, because these are the longest rooms of Chapter 3, especially the last room. So taking a death on one of these rooms can be very very costly and really give, in a race setting, the other runner time to catch up. Ooh, Crono on the right taking a little unfortunate death, but fortunately he was towards the beginning of the room, so it didn't cost him too much time. So the Scrublord's in this last room that I spoke of, and I really didn't even get to talk too much about it because he made that room look like it takes 5 seconds. That was very impressive movement by him. A 9:02 coming out of Chapter 3 only puts him 7 seconds off of his PB, so even Scrublord is definitely on pace for a really good time here. Crono on the right navigating some very difficult rooms of Chapter 3. So Scrublord is entering Chapter 4. Chapter 4 is, you know, take it or leave it. Some people really like this chapter. Some people absolutely despise this chapter. But it introduces the wind mechanic. And so now there's going to be wind that pushes Madeline in the direction that the wind is blowing, which can definitely change the way you play, because it basically renders a lot of your movement useless. Luckily, with the hyper dash technique that I spoke of, it kind of cancels out the wind with how much speed you get. Scrublord taking a couple unfortunate deaths in Chapter 4. I'm sorry, we're not in Chapter 2, but nothing too major. Crono on the right, just finishing up his huge mess section, so he's going to be making his way to Oshiro. As I said, he's making very good time so far. Few unfortunate deaths, but nothing too major. He's playing really well. Crono also losing his dash in this room, just as Scrublord did. This room can be very tricky if it doesn't go the way you're expecting it to. Having to hit these 4 buttons and hit these light crystals with the dust bunnies in your way can be very daunting. So as Crono finishes up his Chapter 3, don't take your eyes off Scrublord here on the left, as this man once did hold the IL world record for Chapter 4, and it definitely shows. He's just flying through this chapter with wonderful movement. Crono on the right going through that hyper room that I talked about earlier. As I said, this room can be very difficult because it requires you to do 4 hypers in a row while dodging the cycles of those dust bunnies, and he gets it beautifully. Takes a couple tries, but I mean, that happens to everybody. That's a very difficult room. So Scrublord moving into Chapter 4, the end of Chapter 4, where the wind is even stronger. And we also introduced these snowballs, as you just saw on the left side of the screen there. The snowballs will be coming across in intervals. Whenever they hit the screen, it'll be at the height you were when they spawned. And if you get hit by them, you will take a death. Though you can bounce off of the snowball, as Scrublord just did, to gain your dash back. And ooh, dashing downward, taking an unfortunate death, having to redo this room. This is another section where, you know, kind of like in Chapter 3, you're used to the cycle of just not dying, and dying changes everything, the timing of the snowballs and everything. So it definitely could throw you off if you aren't ready for it. Crono on the right, starting his Oshiro section. He's partial the way through it, but so keep your eyes on him as he finishes up his Chapter 3, and we will see what kind of time he's ending that with. Scrublord finishes up his Chapter 4 with a wonderful time. And he's going to move on to Chapter 5, Mera Temple. Mera Temple's an interesting chapter. There's going to be doing a lot of skips and a very kind of challenging section with Theo. But it would definitely be a good chapter to watch. Crono on the right in this extremely long Oshiro room. So we'll pray that he makes it through it just fine. Ooh, taking an unfortunate death towards the end there. That's going to cost a little bit of time. This room, again, it can be very difficult because of how long it is and how much you have to dodge. You're worried about cycles, you're worried about Oshiro and where he's at. It can be very daunting. So, if we watch Scrublord here to the left, just making his way through Mera Temple, we now have a couple of new mechanics. The red bubbles, which are objects that when you dash into them, they will carry you in a direction you push until you hit a wall. And also the blocks that move whenever you dash. So we're going to be seeing Scrublord doing all sorts of things like using these bubbles as much as he can and utilizing the momentum that he gets off of the blocks that shift when you dash. Crono wrapping up Chapter 3 at a time of 14:24, which is a very respectable time, definitely. He's going to be moving into Chapter 4, where he's going to have to deal with this wind mechanic. Also noting for anybody curious that at Chapter 4, Crono is still ahead of his PB, so he's still on pace to get a nice new PB. Scrublord advancing through Mera Temple, introducing a new mechanic we saw a second ago, which are these Seekers. So the Seekers are enemies that will, they'll be blue and they'll be wandering around, and if they see you, they'll turn red and they'll chase you relentlessly. Here is one now. If they have not seen you, they will slowly kind of gravitate towards your position. So there's no losing a Seeker. There's only, you can, if you're lucky, you could take one out with a door or something. Ooh, Scrublord taking unfortunate death there. He was going down to get that button and just cut it a little too early. Tried to go a little too fast and the Seeker got him. So you can see how these Seekers can be very stressful. Scrublord going for a nice strat here where you kind of bop the Seeker into the button. There he goes. Takes a little bit of trouble with it. It can be very difficult to get him in that way using a hyper. While Scrublord finishes up with this and moves on to the Theo section, keeping an eye on Crono over here. Opting to not do a spike jump there, which is an excellent choice. It is a very tricky jump, and taking the block does not lose you much time at all. So far, though, making very good progress through Chapter 4. This could be a definitely very challenging level to deal with. So he's making very good work of it. Scrublord getting ready to do a skip of Mera Temple and unfortunately dying trying to do it. But you're basically just doing a reverse dash to skip over that and skip getting a bunch of keys and stuff. All these things that I talked about, the dash jump, the hyper dash, they could be done in reverse. You basically just perform the action and then push the other direction, and you can do say a hyper dash in another direction. It's very useful in scenarios like we just saw on Scrublord's screen with that skip, that you don't have enough space to do the trick, so you need to kind of use the space behind you. So Scrublord moving into the Theo section of the run. This could be a very challenging section because you have to carry Theo around because he's stuck in this crystal, and you have to hit these buttons and dodge Seekers. And you can't dodge while you're carrying Theo. You can't dash while you're carrying Theo, but what you can do is you can dash into Theo and then catch him, where you will be, it will conserve your momentum and give you a nice burst of speed. So we're seeing Scrublord trying to move as fast as he can while holding Theo. Unfortunately dying to a Seeker there, but having a little bit of difficulty. Nothing too major though. It's a very small, short room. On the right here, Crono, it will be shortly moving into the fast wind section of Chapter 4, which is the most challenging part of Chapter 4. So we will have to watch and see how he handles that part. So seeing Scrublord here on the left just blowing through some of these rooms, doing it in ways that definitely are not intended. He is doing some very, very fast strats to get through this area. Very nice, fluent looking movement. And with the 1734, wrapping up Chapter 5. So Scrublord is going to be starting Chapter 6 here. Reflection. So there's going to be a bunch of new mechanics again in Chapter 6 that we're going to be using in different speed tech to be utilizing. The first thing here is the feather, which is the object that will carry you for a short amount of time, and you can direct it with the analog stick. I don't know why that was so difficult for me to describe. So you can see Scrublord is just trying to keep the feather momentum going by gathering these feathers and dodging platforms. Scrublord going for a trick here called Lake Skip, which I would never forgive him if he didn't go for, and he nails his second try. Very nicely done. That's a very complex skip that where you're kind of doing a wall bounce and then off of an area where you have a little bit below the spike tree you can wall bounce off of. That skip's having to get the angry Kevin block on the other side and carrying it over. So it saves a good amount of time. It's just very tricky to do. So I mentioned the angry Kevin blocks that we will be seeing right here. These are guys where if you dash into one of their sides, they will fly in one of those directions for a period of time. So not only are we going to be utilizing those to get through the area, but we might see Scrublord using their momentum to gain insane amounts of speed throughout some of these rooms. Crono on the right, finishing up his Chapter 4 with a time of 20:04. And he'll be moving into Chapter 5 to start doing his skips in Mera Temple and handle Theo. So another mechanic that we'll talk about on Scrublord's side of the screen we saw a second ago are the kind of shocky looking bumper guys. If you dash into one of those, they will send you flying in the opposite direction, as we'll see here on the left side of your screen. And you can, when you bounce off of one of those, you can kind of push the direction that they're going to give yourself a little extra bit of momentum. So we saw Scrublord do that in a couple areas to kind of skip a couple of the bumpers. Just trying to fly through this chapter as fast as he can. He's doing a wonderful job. It's been a very great Chapter 6 on Scrublord's part. So over on Crono's side of the screen on the right, he's about to do the first skip of Mera Temple, which I really didn't... I was talking about something else at the time, so I didn't get to talk about it, but he will shortly be going into an area... Did he already get it? No, he already went past that part. I'm sorry. I'm thinking he's in a completely different room. But, yeah, there are two skips in Mera Temple, one of which Crono has already done, which skips past getting a bunch of stuff, and you just kind of wave dash over a pit of spikes, and he'll be going to the second in a little bit. Scrublord will be moving on to the battle and fight, and we'll be seeing him get an insane amount of momentum off of this Kevin block, as I said before. And he will be starting the battle and fight, where he will have to, you know, bash into battle and multiple times while chasing around this room. So we'll see if Scrublord can handle this in a very speedy fashion. Crono on the right here, starting his Seeker section. He's been doing very well in Chapter 5. Definitely playing very well, not making too many deaths or mistakes. But definitely keep your eye out on Scrublord here on the left. He is just flying through this battle and fight. He is almost not... I don't think he's made a mistake yet. He's just been tearing it apart, taking every chance he can to utilize every wall, every dash, every cycle he can to make the most amount of time save he can. Crono on the right having a little bit of difficulty with some of these rooms. He's going to be entering the Seeker section with the buttons. This can be very challenging to try and dodge these Seekers, so keep your eye open and keep watching to see how he handles some of these rooms. What can be really interesting to be watching both runners during this race is just seeing the different strategies and ways that they handle some of these rooms. You know, Crono is taking a couple rooms a little bit safer, while Scrublord has been just taking some very complex strategies through some of these rooms. And sometimes that can pay off, and sometimes that leads to some unfortunate deaths. So Scrublord is now entering the second half of the Battle and Fight, where the rooms are going to get a little more complex. You're going to get a lot of these moving platforms. We're going to see how, if he can kind of use his hyper dashes well to utilize the momentum that they will be giving him. Ooh, missing the momentum boost off that last block. Unfortunately, not giving him the height he needs to clear those spikes and taking a death at the end of the room. Crono on the right going for the second Mera Temple skip. I promise he's actually going for the skip this time. I know where he's at. Ooh, unfortunately not making it the first time. That's very understandable. You have just enough room to clear these tentacles and get through this section without needing those two keys. You know, it's something that is not intentional for you to be doing, but nails it. Third try. And he's moving on, still saving a lot of time by doing that. Scrublord on the left, finishing up the Battle and Fight. Very well done by him. Sitting here in the 6-minute mark for this chapter is very well done for this chapter. And Scrublord will be moving on to Chapter 7, the Summit. Crono looking like he's having a little bit of difficulty in some of these Seeker rooms, but still handling them very well. Alright, on the left side of the screen here, we have Scrublord starting Summit, the final chapter of this game. And on the right, we have Crono starting his Theo section. So wherever you look, there's something to be looking at here. So Scrublord is going to be going through this area where he's going to be going through all the other chapters in the game again. But now that he has finished Chapter 6, he has access to a second dash, which is noted by Madeline's pink hair. So we're going to be seeing a lot of extra hyper dashes, extra wall bounces. He could do a lot more speed tech and make these maps just go past in the blink of an eye now with that second dash. Crono here on the right doing really well in his Theo section. For the time I've been looking over at his screen, he has not taken really any deaths or made any mistakes. Just slow and steady making his way through this room. Very well done. Scrublord's current PB is a 32:22, which was set by him 2 days ago. Unfortunately, it is not looking like he will be on PB pace. I believe he's looking like he might be on like a 33 pace, which is still just an unbelievable time. Moving his way up to 1500 M, Scrublord is just making short work of Summit. I'm sorry, he's at 1000 M. Still, just making absolutely short work of Summit. So we'll be seeing not too much of these screens, honestly, because he's doing very well at just using his momentum and carrying his way through these, utilizing that hyper dash and the dash very well. Crono will be finishing up his Chapter 5 here. It's honestly very well done by him. He did very well in the Theo section. That could be a very challenging section with those Seekers chasing you. So at the end of chapter 5 there, Crono was very far ahead of his PB. So we'll definitely have a good run. Seems to be crushing his PB. See if he can cut that sub-hour time, which would be really great. As I talked about earlier, and I talked about Scrublord going for Lake Skip, you will now see what the opposite of not doing Lake Skip looks like on Crono's side of the screen, which is honestly a very wise decision. If you're not comfortable with that skip, it can lose you a lot more time than it will save. And in a race setting, you know, that's definitely something you have to be looking at a lot of the times is, you know, this will save me so many seconds, but is it really consistent enough for me to be able to do in a race? Scrublord moving into the 2000M section of Summit, going back to chapter 4, so he has to deal with this wind again. Not personally one of my favorite parts of the game, dealing with this wind, but he's making it look like it's not even there. Going for a very challenging strat there, going underneath that section. See if Scrublord ends up going for an auto scroller skip here, which he does, and he nails it. That is a very challenging strat on Scrublord's side of the screen that he just pulled off there. That was very well done by him. So in these sections that Scrublord's in right now, these are the ending of each of the kind of sections where you're going to have to be catching all these battles, going to be catching you at all these spots you dash to. Those are very long screens, so taking a death on those screens can be very costly. So it's definitely good to see the runner not taking any unfortunate deaths there. So Scrublord now in the 2500 meter section of Summit. This is a very exciting part, so definitely don't take your eyes off Scrublord's side of the screen. As he's going to be doing a lot of tricks and skips to get through this section very quickly. Just did a very beautiful skip there to get that key, and that's not easily done. So props to him for doing that, pulling it off first try. And if there's anything I know about Scrublord, very shortly we will be seeing a trick known as door skip, which will be right here, where he's going to be skipping, opening these doors, and just dashing under them and getting it first try. Very well done. That honestly does not save you a whole lot of time, a second at most, but you know, every little time save possible. And he made that look very easy. So on Scrublord's side of the screen, he's going to be here on the final ascent at 3000 M, tagging as many of these flags as he chooses. I don't want to say 30 flags because I know he's not going to be going for all of them. So we will have a kind of incomplete countdown to the end of the run. So Crono on the right there, we just passed through a room where he decided to take an upwards route. What's interesting about Chapter 6 is there's many branching routes in this section, and a lot of runners go different directions based on what they're most comfortable with. Some of the Crono having a little fun with the bumpers there. It's surprised he held on as well as he did. Didn't take a death. That was very well done. But yes, some of these branching pathways, they're not too much slower or faster based on which ones you go for. It's more of whichever one the runner is most comfortable with. So it's cool to see different runners go different paths based on which one they're more comfortable with. So we have Scrublord here, flying through the summit, just making very short work. Getting immediate value off that checkpoint flag as he takes a death right after it. Yet again, he's just making sure he gets all the value he can off of each and every checkpoint, making them all feel important. But as I said before, he won't be going for all of these checkpoints. As you just see, he just skipped checkpoint 8 there. Some of them, in that case, it's just as fast to go around the checkpoint than it is to grab it. Also, on the next checkpoint, checkpoint 5, it's on a screen transition in which the game gives you a checkpoint anyways, so you don't really need to land and get this checkpoint. But other than that one, it can be very scary to watch a runner skip a checkpoint. You know, it definitely makes the movement very tense. Crono here on the right, starting the battle-in fight. Taking a few small deaths. I think it's just, you know, getting warmed up to how she works and how her fight mechanics. Got to get a little warmed up to it. She she shoots these like orbs out, and eventually we'll have to kind of reload them. You can kind of rush to them, so if it's not fully spawned yet and you hit her, you won't get hit by the orb. Same with the laser that she was about to shoot. So a lot of these things you'll be seeing Crono doing is just rushing her as quickly as you can to try and beat the projectile from coming to get you. And, you know, if you're just a little short on that, that projectile can come get you and hit you. It's not fun. And if you watch on Scrublord's side, he is, taking a small death there on going to the final top of the mountain. We'll see if he can cut the 34. But he is finishing up the run as he hit checkpoint 1 a second ago. And that is time for Scrublord at 33:55. Very wonderful time by him. And with that, that makes Scrublord the very first 7-0 of the tournament, undefeated. Congrats to him. That is just, that is an amazing feat, to be honest. But just because Scrublord's finished, don't take your eyes off Crono here on the right as he finishes up his run. As I stated, was on PB pace. We'll definitely see if he can carry that through Chapter 6 and 7 here. Ooh, just narrowly dodging that laser. Twice narrowly dodging the laser. And getting that. Very nice. Not taking a death there. Very well done by him. Ooh. Crono making me very nervous with some of these screens, but he is doing very well to not take any unfortunate deaths. Alright, we are moving into the second half of the battle and fight here. This can be very tricky with these moving platforms, so hopefully Crono can maintain the nice level of playing that he's been doing so far in this fight.
Hey, Zick.
And we have Scrublord with me here for a post-run interview. How are you doing, Scrublord?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. How's it feel to be the first 7-0 of the tournament, undefeated?
Oh man, feels nice. I know I'm definitely not going to be the only 7-0. I mean, yeah, I just had to get all my matches done this week because I'm gonna be away next week, so I thought that would be a good idea. But yeah, it feels nice to go 7-0. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to get all your matches done early. You know, then it's done out of the way. You don't have to worry about it.
Definitely.
So how do you feel about how your run went? Everything looked very well.
Yeah, I mean, it may look the other way, but I made a lot of dumb mistakes. So many misdirected dashes. Like, it's really hot where I'm at, so I kind of blame it on that. I'm kind of tired.
That's understandable. We can blame it on that.
I'll just make all the excuses I can.
Yeah, I noticed there were a couple points where there were a couple of short, quick deaths.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
nothing
the quick
too major. Yeah. Still
a pretty good time, I think. So yeah, it went well.
Yeah. So as a guy who just PB'd, 2 days ago, how are you feeling about moving on to the later stage of the tournament? Do you feel comfortable at the time you're at?
Oh man, well, there's been a lot more sub 32 times popping up lately, so I'm kind of scared of that. Let's see. Yeah, like people have just been getting insane times. So it's gonna be rough, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, is there any one section you think you're gonna have to work on to kind of bring your time down to that sub 32 level?
I feel like my biggest is Chapter 5. I've never really had a wonderful Chapter 5, in my opinion, so that's probably somewhere to work on. Yeah, other than that, it's just piecing together a good run with not many mistakes.
Yeah, that can be very difficult to do. I mean, as you said a little earlier, misdirected dashes and everything can kind of just get in your way when you never want them to.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you have any final thoughts about the race tonight or the tournament in general while we watch Crono here finish up the summit?
I mean, it's been a wonderful tournament so far. Like, everyone's been PBing left and right.
Race PBs have been incredible. I feel like every time I tune into the stream, there's a race PB.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, even the 4-way PB, I think, last night, I think it was.
Right, that was last night.
Yeah, it was insane. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, other than that, I don't really have much to say. Yeah, I'm just gonna get off. I guess tell GG to Crono when he finishes.
Yeah, we'll do. We'll have him in here for an interview whenever he finishes up his run. And so far, it looks like he is still on very good pace to get a PB. So we'll see if he can cut that sub-hour and get a race PB.
Yeah, hopefully he gets it. I'm gonna head out now. So.
All right, nice job on the race, Scrublord.
Hey, thanks.
All right, GG again to Scrublord for his victory and his 7-0 in the tournament. But we still have Crono here on the right, finishing up the summit section of the run. As I said, he is still looking very good on his time, so we'll see if he can carry this through the summit, which is a very challenging section to be getting through without many mistakes. So far, though, making very short work of a lot of these rooms, not taking any small deaths or anything like that. He's getting through them. Not only is he getting through them without any deaths, but very quickly. He's definitely taking a lot of... he knows where some safety routes are, where some nice backups are if he's missing a jump, which is very helpful. In times like these, and anywhere in this run, really, it's better to have a backup than to take a death at the end of a room. If you can find a slower route to recover if you miss something, that's definitely advantageous for a runner and will definitely help you go a little bit faster, which we can see that Crono is doing in some of these rooms if he has to, which is very nice. going through the chapter 2 section of Summit here, making very good use of these dream blocks. Backing off a little bit there to make sure he clears that. That's not a bad spot because your game gives you a checkpoint there. That's what's nice about some of these sections is you do get some checkpoints midway through some of these rooms, so sometimes a death isn't as costly as you'd think. Sadly, having to take a retry there. The unfortunate thing about these dream blocks is if you use up all your dashes at the wrong time, there's really nothing you can do because you need one to get through the dream blocks. As Crono saw us a little bit ago, he got to right before dream block without a dash, and he's like, I can't continue, I'm gonna have to retry. Moving into 1500 M here, this is a recreation of chapter 3, which some people are not a fan of with all these cycle-based enemies. So we'll see if he gets through here. Luckily, on some of these screens, the death cycle is forgiving. So a lot of these rooms, it's not too big of a deal if you take a death. Most of the cycles are either very similar or if not easier. From what I have from the leaderboards, Crono's PB is 1 hour flat. So not only would it be awesome for him to get a race PB, but cutting under that hour is a good, definitely a good monument of a time. Making it to that room, a little bit of difficulty. This can be a very challenging room, but now that I said that, he's gonna make it look easy. That he did. That's good. That room can definitely trip you up. Ooh, cutting it really close with the Dust Bunny there as he took a double dash across that area. This is kind of a deviation from the route we saw Scrublord take. You can go down in the room previous to that, which takes you to this room eventually also. It just requires you to do a little fancier movement. Ooh, making it that battle without a dash, that can be tricky. But Crono opting to take the little bit of safer route, which honestly, when you're on a PB pace like this, sometimes it's much better to just take a route you're more comfortable with. Ooh, just missing that battling orb, which unfortunately you have to do the entire room over again. As I said, these battling rooms are the very long rooms, so something like that can be very costly. It's very sad. But Crono not letting the mistake get to him, just powering on through Summit here. Crono opting to take an interesting route choice here. Again, all routes lead to the same area. Some are just require more challenging difficulties to get through. So he, again, opting to take a different route for something he's a little more comfortable with, which is, again, a very smart choice. Most of these deviations that I speak of are only, maybe 1 or 2 screens different. It's not like a major route change, so it's nice that you can kind of make that choice. Narrowly dodging those snowballs, but doing very well. Ooh, very nice save on Crono's part. I was really scared. I thought he was not going to make that, but he proved me wrong. In these wind sections, parts like that where the wind is working with you can be a blessing at times, making you feel like you're going way faster than you should be going. Alright, we're moving into the battling room of this section. We're going to be finishing up the 2000M section and moving on to the 2500. Now, something I didn't mention before about these red bubbles is that the red bubbles, when you push a direction, it's going to go in that direction regardless of what you do. But if you press dash right when you enter the bubble will push forward immediately. Whereas if you let it do its thing, it will take a second before it dashes off in that direction. So you can kind of speed up those red bubbles a bit by dashing when you enter them. Now this room with these dash blocks, this can be a very tricky room because you're just trying to navigate through it, but these blocks keep moving. It can kind of throw you off if you're not prepared for them to move. Crono opting not to go for the bubble skip here to get the keys, just going to go down to get the bubble. You know, if you're not very comfortable with that key skip, that's arguably faster than trying that key skip 5-6 times in a row. Still, in a lot of these rooms, if you're noticing, Crono is making good use of hyper dashes wherever he can. He's getting himself in locations where if he feels comfortable, he's throwing in small little hyper dashes here and there just to give himself a little extra speed, save a little bit of time. Opting to open the doors, that is a very smart choice. And off he goes, moving on to the final section of Summit. And according to the PB on the leaderboards that I have, he is like 4 minutes ahead of his PB. So if he can just nail out this final section, he's in for a very nice race PB. So make sure to stay tuned and keep watching Crono as he goes up this final section and we get the countdown of flags to the summit. Ooh, I'm going to do a little retry there. Unfortunately, like the Chapter 4 mechanics, we have wind. This wind is pushing downwards as a downdraft, making your wall climbs very difficult. So if you get yourself stuck in an area without a dash, as you just saw Crono did, you either have to get yourself back down to a safe point or just take a retry, because climbing walls in this downdraft is very tricky. And if you've got spikes around you, sometimes impossible. But don't let these, couple few deaths Crono's taken deceive you. He's doing a very good job here. This section is not one to take lightly. It's definitely where, you can easily double your death count, but still somehow manage to save time. I think for a while of learning and getting better at this game, every runner has said once, oh, I can get a better PB if I just take, 20 less deaths in Summit. Unfortunately, Crono there just missing the grab on that platform. That was opting to take the safer route, neutral jumping his way up there. Very well done by him. Running out of stamina there could be scary. Having a little bit of difficulty getting up through these spikes. As I mentioned, we had the downdraft before. Now we have an updraft, making, you know, Madeline and her jumps a lot more floaty. So that can be something really challenging, especially when you're trying to go as fast as you can, that your movement's just changing on the fly in this chapter. So you have to be ready going into these screens that, okay, my jumps are going to be a lot floatier now. My dashes are going to take me a lot higher. I have to be ready for that. Ooh, just taking a death before the flag there. This is definitely a challenging section. You have to manage your jumps just right so you don't run out of stamina. That looks good. That was very well done. Definitely much better. This one could be a very challenging flag. It's a long one, going all the way to get these buttons. So taking a death here at the end. Ooh, taking another death. Gonna cost him a little bit of time. Not too much though. Not enough to jeopardize that PB. Just 10 more flags to go for Crono. Ooh. Using his dash just... Oh. There we go. Having a little bit of difficulty in this spike cavern. There we go. Making it through just fine. Unfortunately not going for flag 10 there and having to do a retry. There he goes. Wonderful job, Crono. Nice job getting flag 10 there. Nice checkpoint. As I said, we got to deal with this this updraft here, which not only, you know, messes with your jump, but also your falling speed. So, you know, the way you're used to Madeline's movement. Going for flag 8 there, you know, not a bad choice. Giving it value immediately with the retry. Definitely a worthwhile decision to go for that flag. Unfortunately, using up both stashes to get to that wall. It's gonna have to take a retry. You're gonna need one dash to get over that spike. There we go. Nice work by Crono there. Wrapping up, he's in the... Gonna be wrapping up onto the final 5 flags of Summit right at a 55-minute mark right now. Oh, thinking he had to go for a retry there. It definitely does not. Can utilize the wall to get back to the cloud. All right, we're at flag 2. Just one more flag stands between Crono and the end of the run. Let's see if he can finish this off strong. This is a very, very difficult. Flag 2 to 1 is an extremely challenging section of the summit. Having a little bit of difficulty getting to that last platform. As I said, this can be very challenging. You have to use your dashes just right to get up there. There he goes. Opts for the diagonal that time to give him a little bit of extra height. And he's at flag 1, the final stretch. And Crono wrapping up with a 56-34. That is a wonderful time. A huge improvement by him. Very well done. We will see if we can Crono in here for a quick interview, maybe. But while we wait to see if that's going to happen, GG to both our runners. They definitely put on a really good show here. It's definitely very well done by them. It's good two runs to watch. All right, looks like we're going to have Crono join in here in a second for an interview.
Hello?
Hello, Crono.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you? How do you feel about your run?
Still messing up in the later half a lot, but it's going okay. I did better than yesterday, which is all I can really hope for.
So that's what, a 3.5 minute PB for you?
I have a better PB off screen, or like recorded, but yeah.
Okay.
But like the average is going down. That's better.
That's really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, getting your average down, getting a better time. Do you think that has to do with playing against somebody like Scrublord, or just slowly getting better?
Slowly getting better, I would say. There's like some problem areas I still need to tackle. Chapter 4, Chapter 6, Chapter 7, most definitely.
Yeah, there's just
shave an easy 10 minutes, in those areas.
Those are definitely the big ones. Chapter 7 alone, I know.
Yeah, Chapter 7 alone, exactly.
Yeah, and Chapter 4, I'm not a fan of that wind mechanic. So.
Yeah, I know. I was green up until there, and then Chapter 4 came along. I did practice a bit of Chapter 5, and I see a bunch of green splits, and then Chapter 6, well, I did some pretty dumb things in Chapter 6.
Overall, though, it seems like you did pretty well.
Yeah, I did okay. I think I'll just review where I need to go, or where I have the most deaths, because I think deaths are probably the worst thing that it's hindering my time.
Right. As I was saying during the race, sometimes it's better to have a backup strat or know what you can do to recover rather than take a death in a room. Can save you just a monumental amount of time.
Yeah, exactly. But I didn't forget the casual strats this time, so I'm not spending 5 minutes randomly doing something.
Yeah, you made a lot. I noticed that a lot. You made a lot of good choices to not do certain tricks.
Yeah, I was like, this isn't working out, so I'll do it this way. But yeah, I definitely need to work on some tricks still, but overall, still better than yesterday, and I'm happy about it.
Yeah, awesome. So how do you feel about your upcoming matches? Feeling confident?
Not confident, but hopeful. And it'll be more feasible. I know Scrublord was a definite candidate to actually win this tournament. So. But maybe getting out of groups is still possible. Try to bring this 56 or something down to maybe a 40 something, and then start contending with some other people in my bracket.
Right. I mean, you just got your 2 hardest matches out of the way, so that's kind of almost a weight off your shoulders.
Yeah, exactly. So it's actually good that I face them now, than face them later.
Gives you your practice, gets you warmed up to the races and the race setting, and now you can get onto your other 5 games a lot more prepared.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, do you have any closing remarks or thoughts about your run?
No. Just thanks for sticking on, sticking with me, even though it's like 20 minutes past. But yeah, thanks for checking us out.
Yeah. All right. So that is going to be all for me and this race. Be sure to follow our runners, Scrublord and Crono here. And if you're looking for more Celeste races, we have a 4-way going on, actually probably at this moment, on Speed Gaming 3 between Vorpal and Bentisi and 4 Steven and more of that. So, if you're looking for more Celeste, go ahead and hop on over there and watch that race already in progress. But that will be all for me. So thank you all for watching. Thank you, Speed Gaming, for having us on here. And you guys have a wonderful night.